All right, let's dive in. Today we're cracking open Tim Ferriss's Tools of Titans.
A book jam-packed with advice from, well, titans.
Exactly. World-class performers across all kinds of fields, athletes, entrepreneurs, you name it. And we're going to try to distill all that into something you and I can actually use.
It's like a cheat sheet for success, right?
Yeah.
All these insights from hundreds of interviews.
Totally. So are you ready to unearth some gems?
Absolutely, let's go.
Okay, so Ferriss kicks things off with these three core skills: thinking, waiting, and fasting.
Not your typical self-help buzzwords, huh?
Right. And he's pulling this from, get this, Hermann Hesse's Siddhartha.
Interesting. Okay, so how do those even apply to, like, real life?
Well, he connects thinking to decision-making. Not just about being smart, but having a good system for choices.
So asking the right questions before you jump into anything.
Exactly. And not just yourself, but like knowing how to get good info from others.
That makes sense. Laying the groundwork for smart choices,
Yeah.
avoiding those big mistakes.
Right. Now, waiting, I gotta admit, sounds a little passive.
Yeah, but it's more about the long game. Resisting that urge for instant gratification, building something that lasts.
So discipline. Delaying gratification for a bigger payoff later on.
You got it.
Okay, but fasting. I'm thinking juice cleanses and like serious hunger pangs.
Think of it more like resilience. Pushing your comfort zone, mentally, emotionally, even physically. Getting comfortable being uncomfortable.
So it's more about mental toughness than deprivation.
Exactly. And Ferriss points out a lot of these high achievers he interviews, they actually seek out that discomfort. Like they're intentionally putting themselves through these fasting periods to come out stronger.
Interesting. So thinking, waiting, fasting, this like mental, emotional, strategic trifecta for
Well,
success.
you could say that. And you see these principles all throughout the book in all sorts of people.
You know, one of the more unexpected things I found was this deep dive into gymnast strength training. Ferriss trains with coach Christopher Summer, and it had me rethinking my whole workout.
Body weight training.
Right.
It's amazing what you can do with just your own body.
Absolutely. And there were some unusual exercises, like the QL walk.
Oh, I know that one. Walking around on your butt, basically.
Not pretty, but effective.
Yeah.
Apparently it's from a powerlifter, Donnie Thompson, so it's got to be legit.
Yeah, for those QL muscles in your back. The ones we tend to ignore.
Right. And then there's the hinge row. Imagine like a Dracula bicep curl, but with rings.
It's all about visualizing that handstand, feeling those muscles. Low risk, but great for building that strength.
So no more excuses for wimpy handstands? Gotta try these out. Now, another section that surprised me, fasting and the ketogenic diet. I'll admit, I'm always a bit skeptical of trendy diets.
Well, Ferriss brings in Dom D'Agostino, who researches ketosis, to break down the science.
And what's the verdict? Just another low-carb fad?
It's more nuanced than that. Ketosis is about switching your fuel source from glucose to ketones, which come from fat. So, yeah, less carbs, but the goal is burning fat for energy.
So less sugar, more fat burning.
Okay.
But any benefits besides weight loss?
There's growing evidence for cognitive benefits. Better focus, mental clarity. And D'Agostino himself, he does this 3-day fast. Says it helps with that.
3 days?
Yeah, usually Thursday dinner to Sunday dinner. But he's big on finding what works for you. Like he even schedules phone calls for Friday to show you don't have to totally isolate yourself. Just integrate it.
Okay, that's actually encouraging. I was imagining being locked away in a dark room for 3 days. Now, we can't talk nutrition without supplements.
Right, and Agostino has some favorites he swears by.
Like bone broth. That seems to be everywhere these days.
Kettle and Fire is his brand. Big on the gut health benefits.
Interesting. He also mentioned some more, well, unusual ones, like Eidibonone. What's that all about?
Imagine coenzyme Q10, but supercharged. Antioxidant, absorbed easily by the mitochondria. He takes it before flights, tough workouts, that kind of thing.
Okay, I'm intrigued. And, of course, magnesium. Good old magnesium. Why is that so important?
Crucial for so many things. Muscle recovery, sleep. Especially key on keto can help with cramps. D'Agostino likes natural calm, the magnesium citrate powder. Easy on the stomach.
All right, now for something a bit controversial. Ferriss gets into metformin and low-dose lithium. Didn't even know you could take lithium in low doses.
Yeah, definitely one to be careful with. Talk to your doctor. But both Patrick Arnold and D'Agostino have interesting things to say. Metformin, the diabetes drug. Some people think it might help with longevity.
But it comes with risks, too, right?
Absolutely. And same with the low-dose lithium. Tim takes lithium orotate, based on Dr. Atia's suggestions. Early research shows it might help with mood and thinking, but more research is definitely needed.
Right, approach with caution. Do your own research. Now, one of the most memorable stories for me was Dr. Attia grilling these doctors about cholesterol.
Oh yeah, he's all about what does cholesterol actually do? Apparently a lot of them couldn't answer.
It shows the difference between labeling something and actually understanding it, right? Like that story with Richard Feynman's dad knowing the name of a bird versus understanding how it flies.
Exactly. It's not enough to just slap a label on it. Got to dig deeper, ask why.
So we've got resilience, these crazy workouts, the science of ketosis, even some wild supplements. But Tools of Titans goes beyond just like individual stuff. It gets into the social side of things too,
Like Laird Hamilton's take on group exercise. He's all about the who over the what.
meaning the people matter more than the specific exercise.
Yep. Strong community, shared goals, that's key for motivation and sticking with it. He even says a lonely place is an unmotivated place.
You know, it's true. Working out with someone else just makes it easier to stay on track.
Absolutely. And speaking of motivation, Gabby Reese, Laird's wife, the volleyball player, she has this great advice to her 30-year-old self.
Oh, I'm all ears. What is it?
Don't take things personally, and don't hold back, especially as a woman. She tells this story about a coach who treated his men's and women's teams the exact same, expected the same level of, like, confidence.
It's a good reminder, be yourself, don't let fear hold you back.
Totally.
Okay, now this is one we got to be careful with. Ferriss explores microdosing psychedelics.
Right, and he's very clear that it's complex, often misunderstood. He does talk about his own experiences, but he also brings in experts like Martin Polanco, who works with ibogaine treatment.
So it's not just, hey, everyone should try this.
Definitely not. Polanco is all about medical supervision. There are risks, and everyone reacts differently.
So extreme caution, professional guidance, got it.
Yep.
Let's switch gears a bit. Something less controversial. Mobility and sleep.
Two things people often overlook, but so crucial.
Right. Kelly Starrett, the physical therapist, he's all about daily mobilizations, just incorporating little movements into your day.
And he has some specific ones he recommends, right?
Yep. The cow stretch, different lunges, even gut smashing with a medicine ball.
Gut smashing.
Yeah, you lie face down with a medicine ball under your stomach, just kind of roll around on it. Sounds weird, but he says it's great for relaxation before bed.
Huh. Okay. Well, when it comes to sleep, Ferriss and a lot of his guests are big fans of the Chillipad.
Temperature regulation, right. It's a game changer for so many people.
Yeah, you can control your bedding temperature without bugging your partner. And sleep is so important for everything. Recovery, thinking clearly. It makes sense to optimize it.
For sure. And then there's the classic honey and apple cider vinegar sleep aid.
Oh yeah, the Seth Roberts one. Apple cider vinegar, honey, hot water before bed. Some people say it even helps with strength training.
Interesting. Definitely worth a shot. Now, Ferriss also gets into his own morning routine. It's actually surprisingly simple.
Journaling, meditation, and his titanium tea.
Right, that blend of pooper tea, dragonwell green tea, turmeric, ginger. Sounds intense.
Each ingredient has its benefits, you know. Pu'er for digestion, dragonwell for antioxidants, turmeric for inflammation, ginger for immunity and digestion.
A supercharged health tonic.
Pretty much. And he's all about starting the day with intention, which is why he journals and meditates. Clear your head, set the tone for a good day.
Makes sense. Now, mindfulness is a big theme in Tools of Titans. Chade-Ming Tan, the former Google engineer turned mindfulness expert, has some interesting ideas.
Like having a joy buddy for meditation, accountability partner for mindfulness.
Love that. So it's not just you trying to do it alone.
Exactly. He also gets into loving kindness medication,
Which is?
cultivating love and compassion. Start with yourself, then extend it out to others. Increases happiness, reduces stress, supposedly even helps relationships.
So it's more than just like emptying your mind.
Yeah, there are all sorts of meditations.
Mhm.
And this one shows how it can be used for positive emotions, connecting with others.
He even tells a story about this woman, Jane, who just did a 10-second loving kindness exercise and felt a huge difference in her happiness.
10 seconds. Wow. What does that even look like?
Just focusing on someone you care about and silently wishing them well. May you be happy. May you be healthy. Maybe be at ease. Simple, but powerful.
I like that. Welcome back to our deep dive into Tools of Titans. Feels like we're just getting started, you know?
I know, right? So much packed into this thing. It's not even just the advice itself. It's like the mindsets these people have.
Absolutely. And one thing that keeps coming up, the power of questioning.
Ferriss is big on that, right?
Yeah.
Always asking those thought-provoking questions.
He is. And he wants us to get good at it, too. He even gives us like a list of questions he uses. Have you heard of the one, What would this look like if it were easy?
I haven't, but I like it already. What's that about?
Overcoming that procrastination, the overthinking. Sometimes we make things way more complicated than they need to be. This question just cuts through all that.
Forces you to simplify, get to the core of it.
Exactly. And another one he likes, what if I did the opposite for 48 hours? Just to shake things up, challenge your habits.
Interesting. So trying something totally different, see what happens.
Yep. Sometimes the unexpected stuff leads to the biggest breakthroughs. And speaking of breakthroughs, Ferriss spends a lot of time on creativity.
And not just for artists, right? He gets perspectives from all over the place.
Like Chase Jarvis, the photographer,
Mm.
entrepreneur. He says creativity is an infinite resource. The more you spend, the more you have.
I love that. So it's not something you run out of.
Nope. The more you use it, the stronger it gets. Like a muscle.
Right. Now, Ramit Sethi, the finance guy, he had some interesting thoughts too. Not who you'd expect to talk about creativity, but
He's big on using checklists, actually, to streamline the process.
checklists for creativity.
Yeah. Both Sethi and Ferriss love Atul Gawande's book, The Checklist Manifesto. It's all about how checklists, even in creative stuff, they can make you more efficient, reduce errors.
So it's not stifling, it's freeing up mental space so you can be more creative.
Exactly. And of course, something anyone in a creative field, or really any field, has to deal with criticism.
Yeah. Not everyone's going to love your work. Gotta have thick skin.
Well, Ferriss has some tips for that negativity, online and offline. Don't feed the trolls. Focus on the few who give good feedback.
So it's filtering out the noise, finding the signal.
Right. Not every critique deserves your time. Find the ones that can help you grow. Ferriss even says, promote some of those good critiques. Shows you're open to feedback. Don't take yourself too seriously.
Smart. Takes the power away from the haters.
Totally. Embracing that vulnerability.
Okay, so we've got questioning, creativity, criticism. Another big one for me was fear. How to deal with that fear that holds you back.
Ferriss has this fear-setting exercise. Have you heard of that one?
I have. It's like facing your fears head on, right? But in a structured way.
Yeah, the idea is our fears are usually way scarier in our minds than reality. So you write down your worst-case scenario.
The absolute worst thing that could happen, like a mental rehearsal for disaster.
Kind of, yeah. But often, when you see it on paper, it loses its power. And it forces you to think, okay, if that did happen, what would I do?
So you have a plan, even for the worst possible outcome.
Exactly. And a lot of times, once you realize you could recover, even from the worst, the fear starts to fade.
It's not this big monster anymore. I like that.
And the cool thing is, it applies to any limiting belief.
Yeah.
Not just fears. Like, what if that belief isn't even true? What if you're capable of way more?
Now, one thing that pops up all the time in Tools of Titans, morning routines, Ferriss breaks down his own routine in detail.
Yeah, he's all about keeping it simple but effective. But he's also tried a ton of different routines over the years, so...
So it's not about copying him exactly, it's finding what works for you.
Right, and being consistent. He also talks about your environment, having a dedicated space, no distractions, setting yourself up for success.
Making it easy to stick to the routine.
Exactly. Now, another big takeaway, relationships. Easy to neglect them when you're busy, but...
Ferriss is big on networking, right? Building those connections with people who inspire you.
Yep. He even gives tips for reaching out to people you admire, even if they seem, like, unreachable.
Really? Like cold emailing someone you're a fan of.
It can be that simple. Send a thoughtful email. Connect on social media. But be genuine. Offer value. Focus on the relationship, not favors.
So show them you're genuinely interested in them, their work.
Exactly. And once you have that connection, nurture it. Stay in touch, send gifts, support each other.
He also talks about mastermind groups, right?
He does. That small group of people you trust, bounce ideas off of. People who get your vision, but aren't afraid to call you out. That's your mastermind group. We don't have to do everything alone.
Do you have a group like that?
It's something I've been thinking about. Makes a lot of sense.
It does. And it's not just about getting support, it's giving it too.
Totally. Now, we can't forget about productivity, time management. Ferriss has a ton of strategies for that.
And not just the usual stuff, right? He
Yeah.
gets kind of unconventional.
Like the Pomodoro technique. Work in focus bursts with short breaks in between. Ever tried that?
I have. It's surprisingly effective. Breaking it down into chunks makes it less overwhelming.
And Ferriss likes to batch similar tasks together. So you're not constantly switching gears.
No.
Like set specific times for email, social media, so you don't get sucked in.
So important. Those notifications are like a black hole. Now this one's interesting. Productive procrastination.
Sounds counterintuitive, right?
Not only.
But the idea is schedule time for things you enjoy. Even if they seem unproductive, you'll be less likely to procrastinate on the important stuff.
So you're giving yourself permission to, like, indulge a little.
Exactly. And you'll come back to your work feeling more refreshed.
Like giving your brain a break to recharge.
Right. And speaking of recharging, we got to talk sleep. Ferriss has a whole section on optimizing that.
Give me all the tips. What does he say?
Well, the basics. Darkness, temperature control, no caffeine or alcohol before bed.
Yeah.
But he also gets into some more out there stuff, like the Chillipad for temperature control.
Yeah, that temperature-controlled mattress pad. I've heard good things.
He's a fan. And he also likes that honey and apple cider vinegar thing we talked about. But one of the most interesting ones is sleep restriction therapy.
That sounds kind of intense.
It is. You basically limit your time in bed to how much you actually sleep. So if you only sleep 6 hours, you only spend 6 hours in bed.
Wait, wouldn't that make you more tired?
Maybe at first. But the idea is you're training your body to fall asleep faster, stay asleep longer. Good for insomnia.
Huh, interesting. Not a quick fix, but maybe good long-term.
Right. And that's what I like about Ferriss. He's looking for the long-term solutions, not just the quick hacks.
Totally. He's playing the long game. All right, so we covered a lot in this part. Questioning, creativity, fear, sleep, so much good stuff.
We just scratched the surface. What are some of the things that have stood out to you so far?
It's hard to pick just one or two things. Every chapter has something. But I think the biggest thing is that emphasis on mindset, self-awareness.
That's a good one.
Yeah.
Knowing yourself, your strengths, your weaknesses,
Yeah.
playing to your advantages.
Exactly. Figuring out what makes you you and using that to create a life you love.
And that's something we'll be exploring even more in part 3.
We'll be back soon to wrap up our exploration of Tools of Titans. Until then, keep those notebooks handy. We're back. Part 3 of our Tools of Titans deep dive. And honestly, I'm starting to think Tim Ferriss is a Titan himself, just gathering all this wisdom.
Right. It's like a master class in like being awesome at life.
Mm.
And as we wrap up, I keep coming back to mindset self-awareness. That seems to be the foundation for everything else.
Totally. Knowing your strengths, weaknesses, what makes you you. So many of his guests talk about that.
Like Chris Sacca, the venture capitalist guy, he said something like, the interesting jobs are the ones you make up.
So you don't wait for the perfect opportunity, you create it.
Exactly. Build your skills, follow your passions, and make something unique. He thinks that's way more fulfilling than just fitting into some mold.
Don't wait for permission. Just go be amazing. I love that.
Me too. And it reminds me of what Naval Ravikant talks about, building specific knowledge, becoming so good at something valuable that you're like indispensable.
So not a jack of all trades, but a master of one.
Exactly. Find your niche, go deep, become the go-to person for that thing.
Find your superpower and, like, hone it.
Totally. Now, another thing about mindset, embracing failure.
Oh, yeah, that's a tough one. We all try to avoid it, but it seems like successful people have failed a lot.
Right. Like you can't make an omelet without breaking a few eggs. Right.
Sebastian Junger, the war journalist, he actually says, be prepared to fail. He thinks it's crucial for growth. If you're trying to avoid failure, you're holding yourself back.
So it's not about not failing. It's about learning from it, using those failures as stepping stones.
Exactly. And B.J. Miller, the doctor who lost 3 limbs, he has this powerful perspective on tough times. He says, suffering is part of the deal.
It's true, but hard to hear sometimes.
Yeah. But he's not saying, like, wallow in it. He's saying accept it, find meaning, even when things are hard. He's such an inspiration. He's proof that you can find strength even in the darkest times.
Absolutely. And that kind of leads into another big thing in Tools of Titans, giving back.
So many of Ferriss's guests are into philanthropy, doing good in the world.
Yeah, it's like they've reached a certain level and realized, okay, it's not just about me anymore.
Like Alexis Ohanian from Reddit, he's big on digital rights, access to information. He thinks we should all use our skills to make the world better.
And Amanda Palmer, the musician, she's all about empathy, connection. She says if she could put one message on a billboard, it would be, radical empathy is our only hope. Please pull over at the next rest stop and call someone you need to make peace with.
Wow. A little act of kindness can go a long way. Speaking of small acts, I love the jar of awesome.
Oh, yeah. Ferriss does that too. Simple way to be grateful for the little things.
Those small wins every day, a good meal, a pretty sunset, whatever. I actually started my own jar of awesome after reading about it.
It's a good reminder that happiness isn't some far-off thing. It's those little moments.
So as we wrap up Tools of Titans, what's the one thing you're taking away from this whole thing?
It's hard to choose just one. But I think it's that reminder that there's no one right way to be successful or happy. It's about experimenting, figuring out what works for you, and always learning, growing, but also being around people who inspire you and finding ways to give back.
Absolutely. Tools of Titans is just packed with wisdom, inspiration. I hope everyone listening will dive in and find their own takeaways. Who knows, maybe it'll help you unlock your own potential.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive. Keep exploring, keep asking questions, and keep pushing those boundaries.